So yeah, I'm Kirils Solovjovs. I have a bunch of data to show you. There was research done just recently on the Latvian IPv4 address space, and that's what we're going to talk about. What's the address space and what we found. That's me. Follow me on Twitter if you like. My presentation, including this one, are available on Kirils.org. So the first question, of course, is who runs the zoo? The zoo is obviously run by INEA. Those are the guys assigning all the IP addresses to these guys over here, the regional internet registries. For Latvia, our registry is, of course, RIPE. Slide. Oh, my mic is disappearing, but that's OK, I guess. One slide that I promised to put in here is about IPv4 exhaustion, just so you're up to date. This is the numbers that we have in IPv4. So we still have about 1 million addresses available to share between us, but it's running out, so we got to think about that. Let's move on with RIPE. There's a database, and it contains different objects in there, and those objects have, of course, attributes. Some of the attributes link to different objects. Let's take an example. Here's how one of the objects look. This is a real legitimate object from the real RIPE database. You can look it up on Whois. So this object type is poem, and the object name is poem RIPE55.7. And we have different attributes and attribute values. And here are the links I talked about, so links to other objects, right? For example, who created the object, who's administering the object, and so on. So how do we find Latvian internet? What is the internet of Latvia? Which are the IP addresses that we should scan? Well, back many years back, I think 15 years back, maybe a bit more, I started working in network administration. And back then, some ISPs, or maybe most of the ISPs had the billing for those ISPs were made in a way that Latvian addresses were cheaper than accessing foreign addresses. So that's why we needed the list. And I remember from those times, there was a great list on CERT.LV. That it was called local.net, and it had all the IP addresses of Latvia. So that's where I went. And it says, so you can either use the file that I provide, or you can go to Whois and you can take a look at ASNITS.LV, which I did. So I went to Whois and looked at ASNITS.LV. It says ASs of Latvia. I looked around a bit more, and there's one more ASs of Latvia on RIPE. This one is even a bit older, right? It's created 8 years before the other one. So I decided, okay, I need to be sure. I have to compare them. I have to see which is which and what do they contain. And they match at about 50%. So it's not really clear. What is the Latvian internet? Okay, maybe we can do geolocation. Some of the objects have attribute called geoloc. Not a lot of them, but some of them do. Let's try to take a look. Let's try to map all the local net addresses to the map. So this is what we get for Riga. We get some addresses, but I mean it's reasonable to assume that most of them are here, right, where the center of Riga is in some databases. Let's take a look a bit wider. This is how Latvia looks. So we have Riga, and of course we have the infamous paradise, Radisson over there. And if we take a look at Europe, this is what we get. So yeah, geoloc doesn't work to determine if the address is in Latvia or not as well. There's a country attribute in RIPE database. Let's take a look at that. So here's one example, country Latvia. Net name starts with SE, which is Sweden. Let's double check with the traceroute. Yes, traceroute leads us directly to Sweden. So country attribute in RIPE DB is not a good attribute to take a look at as well. RIPE database is a mess. It's a hot steaming pile of bananas. Take a look at this example here. One of the oldest address blocks on the Latvian internet, the Latnet address block, the original one. A small part of it is given out to Robertson and Bloom SIA, and half of that is given back to Latnet. Yes. Okay, so let's get back here. Let's just use the file like I used it when I was administering. Let's forget about RIPE. Let's not do all that. Let's just take the file. So the file has two parts. It has the description part, and it has the part that has actual data, the accounts, I guess. And I mean, I've never looked at this because these are comments. and you don't take them into account. But for this research, I decided to compare them, to compare the comments and compare the actual part. These are the differences. So in comments, we have Hansabanka, which is Swedbank, which is gone here. In actual part, we have these addresses, which are not here, and there's a mismatch of size 256 addresses down there. Also, this is not in local net, even though it's kind of Latvian, and it's actually in the object called AS_NITS_LV on RIPE, so I know it's up to that. But what is in LocalNet actually? Well, LocalNet has, for example, this address. And this address is not allocated. It's not even allocated to any ISP. It's gone. So the story behind the LocalNet thing there is that it's run on a best effort basis, and I mean it's good. I think it's good that we have it. But the quality, well, you shouldn't expect anything perfect. If you want that, you can run your own LocalNet database, I guess. So, but we had to choose something for the research. We have greatly varying numbers here. How large is the Latvian zoo of IP addresses? So we decided just to go with this part of LocalNet, which I've used as a system administrator back then. We also have to take a look at BGP. It might also give us some good information later on. So methodology. We chose what to scan. Obviously, that's what we scan. We chose ports and protocols. Then we chose when to scan, so we can get a representative sample. We grabbed banners, and we grabbed web pages. And we analyzed everything. Well, that's ongoing. I'm probably going to publish a paper together with some colleagues on this. But for now, I will present what we have, and we have already quite some fun things. So the tools we used, in case you want to repeat that, you need a server, of course, and internet. Besides that, we used WHOIS, MassScan, and ZMap. Those are different tools. MassScan is good for banner grabbing. ZMap can be used for icmp probing, for example, nicely. Nmap, of course, for more in-depth, but it's super slow. Parallel. I had to put that in here because if you don't, you have to pay 10,000 euros to the authors if you don't mention that you use parallel in research. So that's where it is. Progress, which is a tool I love. I really love that. If you work with Linux, or I guess Mac OS might work as well, and you work with large files, Progress will show you the progress of reading or writing that file. Super tool. Bash, of course, GNU Core Utils, and Chart, which is a handy tool I made. You can take a look at it over there. It's open source, and most of the charts in this presentation is made using those. So, looking at RIPE once again, this is the division we have. So we do have some provider-independent addresses, which is interesting. We also have anycast addresses. I think we have 3 blocks. All of them belong to NIS.LV. I don't know if they're experimenting with that or they're actually running a product already. So that's that. I had to put this slide in here from the RIPE database. Someone from many years ago, 8 years ago, really put some effort in there, and I thought I have to put in a slide. The guy's probably waiting for someone to find that, so here I found it. Let's take a look at DNS pointers. Here's one specific example. When we type that, we get this, which in English means stop appropriating the address. I don't know who's stealing whose address, but somehow someone, again, Intelia set up that. And the most sad part about this slide is right there. You do not forget your trailing dot in your PTR records. Then that happens if you do. So the classes. It was possible to divide all the results that were gathered in 4 separate classes. OK means that the IP address that we got back matched the A record. So the PTR record matched the A record, so reverse. Invalid meant either it didn't exist, so we got a reply that for a domain that doesn't exist, or it didn't match. None means we didn't get any PTR record, and forward none means that the DNS PTR record was subdelegated to a different zone, but there was nothing in the zone for that. Quick look at .gov.lv. So we wanted to understand if someone is trying to spoof the host names that belong to the government. By the way, invalid PTR records are what lead to those warnings in SSH logs, possible break-in attempt, right? It's not always a break-in attempt, as you can see here. Most of these unfortunately for our research and fortunately for Latvia, is basically admins forgetting to remove all PTR records when changing ISPs. So most of these are, maybe all of these are not attacks, so who knows, but we couldn't really find any attacks easily that way. So then on to the scanning part. Overall host responses, so this is what we got. We got a bit more than 25% of hosts responding in one way or another to the probes. If we take a look at it from midnight to midnight, this is how it looks. So we have 7 days, and these are ICMP probe responses, and we can clearly see that it is Latvia. We can match the time when people get up to the time when people go to bed, and we can see the activities. We can see it a bit better if we focus, for example, on Monday. We can see a typical Monday. People sleep a bit better before Monday because it's Monday, and Mondays are hard, so they don't get up. They want to get up a bit more easier. If we take a look at Saturday and Sunday, we see that people, well, spend more time at their computers at home, I guess. So that's what we see here. We also want to take a look at mobile users, and the only mobile operator of the 3 large ones in Latvia that didn't block all the probes, or most of the probes, was LMT, so that's what we have here. And for mobile users, we see it's interesting that Saturday and Sunday is lower than the other days. So that probably means that people are using LMT routers probably for work purposes, for like servers or providing internet to their offices. Now, we also took a look at the top providers. So these are the top, I don't know how many providers by the address count that responded to ICMP probes. And we can see how they changed relative to their own maximum. So each of those will get to 100 at some point. And we can clearly see the home providers, the providers that go up to 100 after 5 o'clock, after 6 o'clock, and stay there until 10. We can also clearly see providers that are used for example, server hosting or more for work. So yeah, the slides are going to be in PDF, so you won't see this animation, but the video will probably have it. And of course, you can also see Saturday and Sunday, the differences over there. Now, TCP port responses. Now, let's forget ICMP, let's take a look at TCP. This is what we have. This is percentage of all the Latvian IPv4 addresses as we define them. This is 1% right here, approximately in the middle. So the top port is, you wouldn't have guessed it, it's right over here. It's in the 50,000. It's not 80, it's not 443, that's where it is. We can take a look at that a bit later. The question you're going to have, if I'm not going to address it right now, is what are these 2 lines over there, right? Well, let's take a look a bit closer. So these are the lines. We can see them decomposed there when we zoom in to the low ports up to 99. We see that some IP addresses give us about 0.5%. Some IP addresses give us matches here, and a lower amount of IP addresses give us matches over there. So what's happening there? Well, we did expect some baseline that is not 0, because some ISPs do this thing where all the ports are kind of open, and here's the ISP. But these 2 lines really bugged us, and then we zoomed in onto this ISP over there, and I don't know if it's done by the ISP or if it's done by a large customer of theirs, but this is what we have. For port 0, we have more hosts replying than for 1, 2, 3, and 4. For port 5, again, more hosts replying, but it's not every 5 ports, right? If we go a bit back, we can see that here we have 2 ports, here we have 2 ports. So there's some algorithm in there. We didn't investigate it further, unfortunately. So let's take a look at select top ports on top ISPs. So we want to take a look if any of ports are ISP specific, and we can actually see that the top port in Latvia, 51005, is quite ISP specific. So it's mostly TET, mostly provider TET that has it. The second one over here. The others don't have it as much. LMT fakes most of the responses, so that doesn't count. This one's here, and we have it here as well. Looking at this, we can see where the servers are, right? Because we selected these ports plus that high port over there. Now, this is the other way around. We look at the ports, and then we look at the ISPs. But again, we have this false data, so we can remove one ISP, and we can remove the second ISP from the data over there, and then we can actually take a look at it. We can see that almost all the port goes to Telecom or TET here over there. Yeah, and we have mysql, which is mostly in in Vernet, I think. And SIP, interestingly, is in beta Lithuania. Why Lithuania? Well, because local net. Top ISP per port when we look at UDP. So we have home users, mostly home users or dump office users over there that connect their computer directly to the internet. That's what we see for that network once again there. And here we try to map the service and the port. So for example, HTTP service can run on different ports. It can run on 80, which is the standard port, or it can run on some other port. And we can see that 80 actually mostly runs on this 55005. So that's a management port for their boxes that they use, I guess. But we see that SSH, for example, is mostly only the legitimate port, the actual official port. SSL, on the other hand, has 443, but SSL also has other ports, right? SSL can be used for SMTP, so we have 25, and so on. Now, let's take a look deeper. Let's take a look at the server versions that are running in the zoo. Web. Apache is the winner, Nginx, and then we have this DNVRS. And we can compare all these stats to the global stats, and it's quite interesting. But I'm not going to compare all of them, so you can do that at home when you get the slides. This DNVRS is a video monitoring solution that allows you to connect via web and access the recordings and the live feeds. If you take a look at Apache, these are the versions. So we can see some people patch, many people don't. Lots of people hide their Apache version, which is good, even though hackers will still be able to find it, but we didn't have the time to do the full, all the tricks to find the actual Apache versions for thousands of servers. For Nginx, so Nginx, you got to patch. It has some vulnerabilities, really, so you got to patch those. IIS, it's not in the top, but if we take a look at the IIS, these are the versions being used here in Latvia. Okay. Let's take a look at SSH. So Dropbear is the most popular SSH, which means that most SSH ports in Latvia are not servers, but those are actually routers or even, well, bad routers, or mostly some IoT devices that just happen to have SSH port, even though user will never use it probably. Looking at versions for OpenSSH, here we have it, 7.4 prevalent at 18%. Now, a different service we have here is SendMail, SMTP, and XSIM is at top. XSIM is super popular right now. It's trending in all the security circles. So here is the version. So that's how it looks. Patch XSIM as well. XSIM is also a good thing to patch right now. FTP servers, pure FTPD, and then Zyxel routers that have open FTP servers, and then MikroTik. MySQL versions, so that's what we have here in Latvian internet. Also some interesting banners, specifically one interesting banner that I want to share with you. So we found this banner here. It said FTP firmware update utility. And we found it on 28 broadband routers. So you connect to it. And if you have the correct password, or if you hack the password, you can, I guess, update firmware just, with a random router. Next thing, of course, SSL, meaning certificates. More than 100,000 certificates were gathered, and about half of them were non-CA certificates from 42,000 port IP pairs. We have 125 only of those that use elliptic curve cryptography, so that's a bit sad. The rest of them use RSA. And what's the longest key length? Oh, sorry, not the longest, the most common key length, what do you think? Well, it's luckily 248, yes, but second place is at 36%, 1024. There's this company that presented either DEF CON or Black Hat that said they can crack their RSA, so I don't know if they can, but yeah, maybe 1024 is not a good length to have in 2019. Let's take a look at certificates a bit deeper. So 38% of them were unique, so no one else is using that certificate except you. Well, that's not a good number, but of course we have to go deeper. We take a look at certificates excluding the address, because it's okay if your server on different ports has the same certificate. It's also okay if you have multiple servers on a subnet, for example. We couldn't do that precisely, but for example, /24 that shares the same certificate. So when we exclude those, we have 80% of certificates being unique. So 20% of SSL is probably broken just by virtue of sharing a certificate with someone else or having a default installed certificate. Number one top duplicate certificate is Samsung Smart TVs, 2056 Samsung Smart TVs, valid until 2030. What happens after that, we'll see, maybe firmware update. Number two duplicate certificate is, this is an easy one, Samsung Smart TVs. 1,500 Samsung Smart TVs approximately using a different certificate because I decided to have different CN here instead of the previous one that we had. And number three is Dahoi security cameras. Yeah, 1,300. Expired 2016. So the good thing is you can't really abuse them because you can't connect. But I mean, you can do an exception, but seriously, you can't connect with Firefox because the algorithms offered by the camera are so insecure that Firefox doesn't support them. Luckily, all the cameras have HTTP port open, so you connect and you can play around, I guess. Who issue the certificates? So we have CA certificates, 59%. Bear in mind, that doesn't mean that those are official CAs. It just means it's some CA. It can be, for example, LVRTC, or it can be Samsung CA. But it's a CA. It's not someone who self-signs their certificate. So 41% are self-signed. The authorities, once again, not only the actual authorities. We can see that we are a bit behind on adoption of Let's Encrypt if we compare us to other countries or to the world globally. So that's what we have here. Now, the next thing here is the expiration times of certificates. When will the certificates expire? That's the graph. Those are years. So the longest certificate is year 3000 something. So people are really safe, playing safe there. What surprised me first and made me take a look at my code, used to process all that, is about, I think, 6 certificates expire in the year 1919. 1919, so it had a negative Unix time. But that's okay, I guess. So that's what we have. But of course, it doesn't make any sense, so we zoom in a bit more, and that's what we have, basically. So if we take a look around 50 years, around from 2000 to 2050, we see that, of course, we're here. Taking a look at just these years, these 5 years, around where we are right now, of course, we see the spike of Let's Encrypt here, which only issues certificates for 3 months. If we do the research multiple times, like every month, for example, and see how the spike moves, we can see the servers that are actually being maintained, of course, easily. Now, we can take a look at some screenshots. So this, for example, is these are screenshots that you can just find on the internet. If you type in a random IP address and you press enter, you can get one of these easily, and a port in some instances. So this is an LMT router running with another operator's SIM card. We also have someone using LMT router that is without a SIM card and is connected to the internet just as a router, which is, I guess, okay as well. But what's important about these routers? There's a lot of them, and it gives away some information. Not a lot. You need a password for it to be available through that interface. But for example, you can profile people like this family using this IP address is Russian speaking, for example. Or if you take a look at something you don't see here, well, you have data here as well, right? But there's also some hidden attributes that you can't see here, like number of SMSs that are coming in and stuff like that. And you can monitor all that without a password. We also can see some extranets or intranets, depending on how they call it, because we can see both. This is one example, freely available if you have a password. Then there's this thing. We found out which company it belongs to, and apparently it's supposed to be there, but if you just open that IP address or that domain without any outside info, then it's quite interesting. It just says enter the number of mistake, and then you can press submit. Then there's this. So basically, it monitors temperatures there's a name of the property where it's being monitored. So yeah, we also have some more advanced things, like you can also turn off the heating, not only monitor them. And we have this ISP in Latvia, and they set up routers for some of their clients. And when they set up a router, that means that if you type that IP address and the port, in your browser, you get this page without asking for a password. And you have the SSID name and SSID password. You don't even press a button. The password is right there, visually visible as soon as you open the web page. Now, these are obviously so-called favicons or favorite icons. And let's take a look at the favorite web pages. We decided that the easiest way to judge if a website is the same website, if it's the same software, is by favicon. Even though not all of them have them these days, judging by the HTML output is hard, because you have to do then Levenstein distance or AI or some other hard stuff. So, number one, you can see already from the slide, is what? It's a video camera. It's, of course, video camera. It's a different one. It's Hikvision. So not that one, but lots of favicons. We found 2,900 favicons. This includes multiple ports as well. Second place, we have this Unify, also video cameras. We found a bit more than 1,000 of these. Third place, only something legit. We have Unisender, so apparently some email marketing service, and they have a bunch of web servers configured with this nice favicon. It's a scaled-up version of it, though, that's used for I don't know what purposes, but there's a web server over there. And number 4, we found all the Google servers. So we actually type in the Latvian IP address, Google, we get redirected to Google page. So we found a bunch of those. And so we're presenting top 5 here. So number 5, MailGen, one more email mail provider, 500 web hosts that we found over there. And finally, I want to include one favicon that I really liked and one page that I really liked, but that didn't make the top. It's actually on the lowest end, of the favicons. So this is a favicon, and this is the page as it looked. I really enjoyed looking at it for long hours and long nights when doing the research. So yeah, that was a really fun page. I think it's still online. You can try to go ahead and find it. But meanwhile, so you can watch my presentations on Kirils.org, and you can also follow me on Twitter. I tweet in English, so everyone can follow and understand. Thank you.
Thank you, Kirils. Do we have some questions? None at all?
Everything was easy to understand, I guess, so that's good.
Probably. All right.
We have one.
Thank you, Kirils, for the presentation. I really liked how you posted the question that we actually do not know for sure what is Latvian IP address space, and that it's way more complicated than we think in reality. Maybe nowadays in the global traffic environment, it's not so important anymore to distinguish, but for a national CERT, it is really a very important question. So I think we will have a good chat with you on how to determine it better for the future. So I don't really have a question, just a comment, so thank you.
Glad to hear, thanks.
Thank you, and thank you, Kirils.
Thanks. Pleasure being here.